Program complete. Enter when ready.
Yeah, so I literally got this shirt in a loot box like
Yeah.
10 years ago.
I think you showed it to me like a long time ago.
Yeah. And I don't even know what it was talking about.
You were like, sure,
Like, oh,
Spock's looking in
cool.
a mirror and he's got a beard on the other end.
Yeah. So based on this shirt, when we watched this episode the other night, I was like, oh, Spock's gonna fight Spock. That's gonna be cool. That never happened.
No.
No.
Not even slightly.
Not even close.
He doesn't even fight the other people. He just puts them in a
No.
room, he just puts them in the brig, and he's just like, whatever. We'll figure
Mm. Yeah, then he comes in and you're like, oh, this is gonna be bad. He's like, all right, yeah, I'll just beam me out. I read your mind. I know everything.
That's it.
Like, so as per usual, you could have gone in there immediately and been like, hey, so Spock, I think we're from the wrong
Yeah.
timeline. And Spock was like, oh, okay. Well, let's get you out of here.
Yeah. Good guy, Spock, no matter what.
Yeah.
Risk. Risk is our business.
Out there. That way.
What happened?
Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
Rock and roll! 6.
We're not afraid of diversity. We don't persecute it, we embrace it.
At least I won't die alone.
Join our Federation of Planets. And reach for the stars.
Those were the days.
Welcome back to another Trek review where we talk about Star Trek Weekly. And this week, we're talking about the Season 2, Episode 4, entitled Mirror, Mirror. In release date order, it is Episode 4 as mentioned, but for us, it's Episode 10. It originally aired October 6th, 1967. It was written by Jerome Bixby, which I think he only did. I think he did this and a couple others. One other one that we're going to watch later, but not that many. And directed again by the famous Mark Daniels, who's been around quite a while. The Man Trap, The Naked Time, both Menagerie, Space Sea, The Doomsday Machine, and now this one. So he has done a lot. The synopsis for Mirror Mirror is a transporter malfunction sends Kirk, McCoy, Scotty, and Uhura into a parallel universe where the Federation is replaced by an evil empire. Kirk is a despot, and Spock is a cunning henchman. So before we move on, let's ask Caleb what he thought of the episode.
I liked it.
Okay.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. Yeah, it's a pretty good episode, honestly. I enjoyed it. I like how it went. I like how it worked out. Wasn't like too over the top, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff that happened in it that I did enjoy, for sure. I assume it's like a fan favorite.
Yeah. Everybody definitely likes Goatee Spock, and like
Yeah.
everyone likes the whole thought of like this is basically Star Trek's What If, right? Like this is the
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
and like going forward, I can talk about it now. It's like small spoilers, but not really, because it's also a different plane of existence. So this returns, like the concept of the mirror universe, like heavily returns.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where Discovery that started in 2017, like a majority, like 70% of their season takes place in the mirror universe.
Fun.
So it's a concept that Star Trek visits a lot. But the only thing is that they not this episode, because this episode is obviously the introduction of it, but like other episodes going forward introduce an idea that you're like, it's a little doesn't make a lot of sense.
Mm.
But basically what it is humanity is just like really awful.
Yeah.
Like it's never all of the stuff that we have in our time period, like instead of doing it for exploration and like curiosity and all of that good stuff, it's more like domination and conquering, and it's like that's what humanity goes on to do.
Yeah.
And so when they meet like the Vulcans and stuff, like instead of it being like a mutual, like when they invent warp drive and then meet the Vulcans, it's not because it's not like oh wow, there's aliens out here. It's more like, oh, okay, like now we have to destroy aliens.
Mm.
So when you look at it from that lens going forward, you look at Spock here in second in command, it's like it doesn't make a ton of sense. You're right. Because like he's not a human, he's not a Terran as they call themselves and all this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. I mean, it's just how the mirror universe like expands as time goes on.
You don't pay any attention to what Discovery does anyway. That's rule number one.
Yeah, it comes back in
Enterprise, the episode I haven't seen yet. I know they do like a weird thing.
Yeah. They do a weird thing, and it comes back pretty heavily in Deep Space Nine.
Oh. Yeah, there's some stuff I really enjoy about the mirror universe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there, because a few of those things are like my top 5 list or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Your trophies, I gotcha.
Yeah. My Trek trophies.
So, and this is a section where we do a shout out to our new subscribers. And our 2 latest subscribers are Val42K and Randy Adams 03.
What's up, y'all?
Yeah. Thanks for subscribing. And also, Captain Olimar let us know that he enjoyed our previous podcast of the Doomsday Machine, which was nice.
Cool.
Thanks, Captain Olimar, for that comment.
Captain.
All right, let's roll into the review of Mirror Mirror and get into the teaser. A landing party from the USS Enterprise comprised of Captain Kirk, Scott, Dr. McCoy, and Uhura are on the Halkan homeworld attempting to gain rights on behalf of the Federation to mine dilithium on their planet. The Halkan leader, a man named Tharn, tells Kirk that while they find him to be believable, it does not change their overall position, and that the Halkan Council cannot permit the Federation to mine dilithium on their planet. Kirk says that they have shown them historical proof that the Federation's missions are peaceful. Tharn tells him they believe that the Federation is currently peaceful, but there's no guarantee that that will always be so. Tharn knows that the dilithium crystals represent incredible power, and even one life lost as a result of the power of their dilithium crystals would violate the Halkans' history of total peace. And the Halkans are all willing to die to prevent that. The Halkans are complete pacifists. Kirk says that while he admires the Halkans' ethics, he hopes to be able to prove theirs. While these discussions are going on, an ion storm is passing through the Halkan system, causing strong thunder and lightning bolts. Kirk calls the Enterprise through his communicator and asks Spock for a report. Spock tells Kirk that it is a standard ion storm, but rather violent and unpredictable. Kirk tells Spock to prepare to beam up the landing party and also to increase Enterprise orbit to clear the disturbance of the storm. Kirk then asks Tharn when they may resume negotiations. Tharn tells Kirk the Council will mediate on the Federation's offer more, but that he shouldn't be very optimistic of any change. Just before the landing party can depart, Tharn points out that with weapons on board Enterprise, Kirk would have the might to force the crystals from the Hulkins. Kirk tells them to consider that, while they do have such power, there is absolutely no chance they will use it. He then calls for beam up and the landing party dematerializes. So it is like, I mean, it's a funny thing. They end up obviously using the Hulkin thing like through the entire episode, but it's really funny. Like, this is how the episode starts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no like captain's log, blah 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 blah, and then like beaming, like talking to Spock on the bridge and like beaming down and then like introducing themselves to this guy. It's just like,
Yeah.
they're just like they're at the end of like part one of their negotiations. Just really funny.
Yeah, it kind of comes out of like nowhere, you know.
Yeah. When you saw the title Mirror Mirror and you clicked on it, did you think it was going to be like a parallel universe thing or not really?
Yeah, I did. Because I knew that the episode was associated with Spock with a goatee,
Okay.
so I knew that it was like a different universe or timeline or whatever.
Gotcha.
But I had no idea like what the episode was about or anything.
Yeah, like the context of
Yeah.
I did honestly like at the end, right before he leaves, Starn is like, you realize you have weapons that can destroy us, and Kirk's like, oh yeah, we do know that, but consider the fact
Yeah.
that we'll never use them against you.
Yeah.
Take anything
Yeah.
by force.
Yeah, I do like that. Then the other Kirk beams on the ship and immediately is like, blow them up. Blow them up.
Yeah. Yeah, in this way that they write this series, it's very much more like they are a pure mirror to these guys, and like later as they expand the mirror universe in other series, it becomes more of like it's like a parallel universe where
Mm,
characters aren't always the exact same, like in the flip, right?
gotcha.
It's like just because Kirk on our side is a captain doesn't mean he's a captain on the other side.
Right. No, that makes more sense, honestly.
Yeah, right, and it does. And I get it. And it's like because somebody had a cool idea and then they went with it. Okay. Unfortunately, interference from the ion storm gives the transporter operator Kyle trouble as Spock enters the transporter room. Spock helps Kyle try to beam the landing party aboard, but they eventually disappear out of the transporter chamber. Finally, the landing party does materialize, and they start to step out of the transporter chamber, but unnoticed by them, there is a strange symbol on the rear wall panels. Kirk looks up and sees Spock with a beard. The crew, wearing much more flamboyant uniforms and offering Kirk a Roman-like salute, fist striking chest and then arm extending forward toward Kirk. Kirk and company are briefly shocked at the change, but manage to cover their shock. The changed Spock steps up to Kirk, asking him for a status report on the mission. What were you going to say?
They don't cover it well.
They don't cover it super well, no. Not sure what to make of the situation, Kirk simply tells Spock that there was no change in negotiations. Spock asks Kirk if standard procedures should be initiated, to which Kirk simply nods yes. Not knowing exactly what that means, but playing along. Spock steps over to the transporter console and contacts the bridge, telling Sulu to program a phaser barrage on the Hulkin cities. Spock then asks if the Hulkins have any military capabilities, and Kirk tells him they don't. Spock says that it is regrettable that the Hulkins have chosen suicide. Spock then turns to Kyle and lectures him that he was supposed to compensate during the ion storm and that carelessness with the equipment cannot be tolerated. Spock then demands for Kyle's agonizer. Kyle begs Spock not to make him use it, saying he really tried to do what he was supposed to. One of the security guards reaches over and takes Kyle's agonizer and gives it to Spock, who places it on Kyle's shoulder, causing him extreme pain for a few moments. Spock finally stops and lets Kyle slump down to the floor. Kirk and the others do their best to contain their shock and horror at what is happening.
Yeah, that was pretty good. They're showing you right off the bat, like, yeah, these guys are bad.
Yeah.
Like, Oh,
Yeah, especially when they're like, he's like, "Your agonizer, Lieutenant." You're like, "Oh,
yeah,
that can't be good."
yeah, yeah. I don't like anything that's called the agonizer. I also like how it's like you have to wear that
Hmm.
on your person, like
Yeah,
as part of your uniform. And if you're if you're being punished, then like we use your equipment on
yeah.
you. It's like wow, wow,
That's the mirror universe, baby.
yeah,
But yeah, you were right. When they kind of get walking, he's like walking out of the transport thing. They're kind of like Kirk is kind of like the one who sort of covers it up pretty quickly, but the rest of them are all like, "What the?"
what? Yeah, what's going on? This isn't. It's always a horror.
Wow, yeah.
I've come to notice.
She
She
has
always can't keep it together.
she has a couple good parts in there
God,
that made me laugh.
when she flies towards the camera, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
like man. All I know is something bad must have happened to her from Strange New Worlds.
What if in this parallel adjacent timeline, her parents and her brother don't die in a shuttle accident, and she's just a nice lady?
Yeah,
Because you can see where they got that from, right? She talks about the shuttle like all the time.
yeah.
Are you now going to make an agonizer for your channel?
No,
Okay, because it's
I'm gonna make
disgusting.
that. I'm gonna make that chamber where they put. They.
They put
What's his
Chekhov.
name? Yeah. Like, well, what do we think? Are we gonna leave him in there for the usual 12 hours? Oh,
No.
yes.
Oh yes, yes.
It seems like it would be rude not to. Are those facial expressions joy?
I think too
Yeah.
in the scene when he puts the agonizer on Kyle, it's like I think in the remastered thing they added all those like little lightning electrical
Mm,
things because I think in the thing it was just he was just placing it on him. I don't even think there's
yeah.
like a indication that it's really doing much of anything to him. I don't remember. All right, Captain's log, stardate unknown. During an ion storm, the landing party has beamed back to the Enterprise and found it and the personnel aboard changed. The ship is subtly altered physically. Behavior and discipline has become brutal, savage. Having finished with Kyle, Spock drops the agonizer and steps over to tell Scott that the storm caused some minor damage and there were some injuries requiring McCoy's attention. He then shows a bit of impatience when neither man moves to leave the transporter room. By this point, Kyle has recovered enough to tell Spock that the power beam jumped just as the landing party was about to materialize. Spock asks if it was due to Kyle's error, but Kyle tells him it was before his error. Spock then asks Kirk if they suffered any ill effects, to which Kirk says that he does and tells McCoy to give them an examination. As the landing party stop to leave the transporter room, Kirk turns back to Spock and tells him to have the transporter circuits examined. Once having exited into the corridor, Scotty and Uhura begin to loudly ask Kirk what's happened, but Kirk silences them and tells them to wait until they are able to speak privately. It's pretty funny, like as they walk through the corridors, there's just like security officers. Well, I guess we're gonna get into that next chunk here, but I just was like, as they move along, it's like there's people posted like everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that. You slowly start to like figure out that like every person kind of has their own like security team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, man, this like, how do you get any work done on this ship? It's like it's nothing but like infighting and backstabbing, and you
Yeah.
don't rank up unless you murder somebody. It's like, dude, like that's such an awful system.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
definitely not an issue to have the captain, the second in command, and your chief security officer like competing for captaincy like constantly. There can't
No,
be
I'm sure
any
they yeah.
gaps
Sure
in
you get a lot of
security.
stuff done.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you get a lot of work done when you're always looking over your shoulder.
Well, to be fair, I don't think like a lot of it is like they go down to planets and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna give us the stuff that we need," and they're like, "No," like okay, and then they just go back up to the ship and blow them up and then move to the next planet.
Yeah.
So they're probably not doing too many real higher thinking.
Yeah. Kirk's like, I want you to find out what I'm supposed to be doing from Starfleet. It's like there ain't no Starfleet, bub. It's the Empire.
Yes.
It's like,
That's right.
oh, okay. Wow, this is bad. Just waiting for Vader to show up.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Yeah. Where is your goatee?
No more agonizer.
No more disintegration.
They walk through the hallway, which seems to have security officers at every intersection. Every crew member that Kirk encounters gives him the same Roman/Nazi-esque salute, which
Yeah.
Kirk mimics. Every door on the
Yeah.
ship seems to bear a symbol showing the Earth bisected by a sword. The same symbol that appeared on the rear wall panels of the transporter chamber. Once they enter sickbay, McCoy goes over to a table and tells Kirk that everything is out of place, all messed up, and changed around, except for a spot where he spilled acid a year previous. Kirk asks everyone if any of them felt dizzy in the transporter beam. They all say that they did. Kirk says it happened twice. First, they were in their own transporter chamber, then they faded, and upon finally materializing, they had appeared wherever they were. Scott says that the transporter lock could have been affected by the ion storm, and they just materialized somewhere else. Kirk then realizes what has happened. They've somehow entered a parallel universe where everything's duplicated or almost duplicated. Everyone contemplates the thought that they all likely have counterparts in the universe that that they exchange places with during transport. That there were similar storms on both universes disrupted both sets of transporter circuits. Kirk and crew are on the strange ship and their counterparts are on their Enterprise. Kirk realizes they have to use the computer to try to figure out how to get home. McCoy tells Kirk they can't let the Helkins be destroyed. Kirk tells Scott to go down to engineering and short out the main phaser controls, but to make it look like the storm blew out the standby circuits. He then wants Scott to study the ship's technology as they're going to have to use it to get back home. Kirk also tells everyone to scramble the frequency on their communicators and to use them for private messages as the intercoms are most likely monitored. Kirk then tells Uhura to go to her post and find out his exact orders from Starfleet Command and if he has any options. Uhura stops and starts to tell Kirk she's scared, but Kirk assures her that she's the only one who can do it and that he'll be right there. Reassured, Uhura leaves for the bridge. Meanwhile, Kirk and McCoy take a quick look at the ship's library.
I love how Kirk does his very least to blend in. It reminded me of the episode where all the Klingons are on the thing.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like,
Oh.
but even like walking down the hall,
Yeah.
he kind of gives you like the old.
Yeah.
He's just like wherever he goes, he's kind of doing the like
Yeah.
he could care less about it.
Right.
Like you're not really committing, Kirk. You're not really committing fully to.
Yeah.
Oh, it just caught me so funny.
It was no, it is. It was super funny because he does a couple times like nah, he doesn't really
No.
care. Like he
Like
doesn't.
very half-heartedly. He probably had to like shoot that thing all day, and he had to kept doing it. And he was so sick of doing it.
Or was just his
Yeah.
acting choice to be like dismissive about it. Like I don't
Yeah.
really know why.
I don't. It's funny to see him try to like blend in this universe where it's like just full of like ruffians.
Yeah.
It almost seems like he kind of starts to enjoy it a little bit. at one point.
At one point, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of it where it comes across weird, but I think it's just because he's trying to play the angles, right? Like just try to
Yeah.
be like, oh, do I feel that way? Do I not feel that way? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's true.
when they were all in the sick bay, like talking, I liked it because it made me think like, yeah, this wouldn't probably have been as good of an episode if it was just like Kirk and McCoy or like just Kirk or something. It
Yeah.
was nice to have like a mix of his crew like with him.
Yeah, I think so. I like that they acknowledged that they felt that they almost materialized on the ship once, and then they materialized the second time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I like that they referenced that. Like it's not just a visual for the audience.
Right.
So like they kind of felt that enough to know like, hey, something kind of weird happened when we beamed up, you know?
Right.
So the whole episode, they're not just like, I don't know where we are.
You're right.
It's like they kind of had a pretty good inclination of something bad.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it's like it's fine. It's Star Trek, and like weird things happen, but it is kind of funny that Kirk like immediately makes this big jump that like they're just in a parallel universe.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
something hasn't even
Because
been theorized.
right? Because to me, nothing against the mirror universe or anything, but to me, the thing I would immediately think because of the like Guardian of Forever thing, it's like, well, something in our history has changed, like some like time travel stuff is immediately what I would have thought was like, oh, what happened in the past to make this now the future?
Yeah, right.
Because that was the thing that you and I were laughing about, or at least theorizing that, okay, you could have easily had the scene where Spock and Kirk jumped through the Guardian and then had like, basically like Nazi, like future Nazi peoples, like
Oh
these type
yeah.
of people like beam down to be like, who are you, because now this is
Yeah.
the future. This is like the timeline.
Yeah, it's true.
And what's really funny that now that I bring it up, because I was going back and I was listening to it, and we didn't talk about it because I didn't think about it until I was listening to it, was that the fact of McCoy basically ends up pulling like a Captain America, like originally. So it's like what you said is like the thing you like about like certain storylines is like these people have something happen to them and they live like essentially a lifetime away, right? And they return. And that's what happens with McCoy. He goes back, he's crazy. He meets Edith Keeler and she doesn't die, right? And
Yeah.
everything changes, which means he doesn't return. So he just ages out in like the 1930s. He just ages and spends time with her. And then like the Nazis, maybe he dies when the Nazis start bombing the United States of America with atomic bombs. I don't know, but it's like it's a thing where that future continues because it ends up removing the Federation and the Enterprise. Like the timeline changes.
Yeah. Unless Star Trek like officially has like a real like TSA agency that goes around and fixes the timelines.
Yeah. I mean, they do have stuff, so maybe. I mean, you saw Daniels, so it's like you have people like that.
Yeah.
But still, the timeline still changed because Kirk and everybody has, the Enterprise disappears and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
right. Yeah, that's an interesting theory. Yeah.
Yeah, just the fact that like McCoy lived out a life like in the 1930s, but then they go back before he appears, so he never has to, live that life.
Huh.
Yeah, super random, but maybe I was just thinking about it when I was listening to it. All right, we're gonna get back into it.
Okay.
Meanwhile, on the bridge, Chekhov and Sulu are preparing coordinates for planetary targets when Uhura enters the bridge and assumes her station. In this universe, Sulu is a security chief and has a large scar running down his forehead and down his right cheek. Sulu leers over at Uhura and steps up to her post, taking her face in his hand and telling her he could change her lack of interest in her. When Uhura tells Sulu he's away from his post, Sulu asks if either Kirk or Spock are there, and prepares to move in on her when she slaps his hand from her face hard. Just before he can move against her, Kirk enters the bridge from the turbolift. The entire bridge crew stands at attention and salutes Kirk, who returns the salute. Sulu quickly resumes his post, and Kirk steps over to Uhura, who tells him there was no storm damage and all stations are normal. She then quietly tells Kirk he is under orders to destroy the Hulkans unless they comply, and he has no alternatives. Kirk steps down and sits in the captain's chair, which is the same as his except for a higher raised back to it, making the chair appear almost throne-like. When Sulu asks permission to fire, Kirk tells him to stand by. Meanwhile, in the phaser control, Scott is stopped by a security guard who asks Scott if he has authorization for this area. Scotty tells him he has the captain's orders, but the guard says he'll have to check with Security Chief Sulu. Scott says he'll do it. Then, after the door closes, he calls Kirk on the intercom and tells Kirk there's no damage to the phasers. Spock enters the bridge and sees that the planet rotation is carrying the primary target out of phaser range. When Kirk won't let Sulu alter the Enterprise orbit, Spock tells him to lock onto the secondary city. Kirk tells Uhura contact the Hulk and Council so he can speak to them again. He then looks at Spock and tells him they have other things of value besides the lithium crystals. Spock points out, though, that they have clearly demonstrated that they will not cooperate by refusing the Empire. Spock tells him that standard procedure demonstrates that they make an example of them. When Sulu reports the secondary target rotating out of phaser lock, Kirk orders Sulu to put phasers on standby, which Spock notes is a serious breach of orders. Kirk tells Spock he'll make the reasons clear to him in his own good time. So the thing that I like is when Kirk comes to the bridge and she tells him everything, and then she goes to say something else and he's like, nope, like, no, we're not gonna talk about this. He kind of gives her this quick shake of the head, like, no, don't say anything else.
Yeah, she's real covert,
Yeah.
I liked his scar. That was pretty good. That's how you know he's bad. He's got a big scar across his face.
Yeah, that's how you know he's really bad, though.
Yeah. Because him talking to her like that, that wasn't bad.
Right.
That's just normal 50 stuff. And then the scar, though, that was bad.
That defines him.
Oh, I don't see the captain around. Dude. Oh boy. Even later, she's trying to flirt with him to distract. Yeah. Oh man, that's so funny.
I like too that this is a very normal thing that happens in most TV shows and movies. When this is how things normally proceed, and then the person who's caught in the, is the different person in the timeline. It's oh no, we're not going to do that. And they're like, you always do that. And he's just like, oh well, we don't got it.
Not this time.
They're like,
yeah, we do.
You don't got to. Of course we have to.
We literally will have to declare you unfit for command to the Empire.
He's like,
well, I'm going to give him 12 hours. That's really unprecedented. You're gonna
we always open fire at this point.
Yeah, you have to. You have to open fire. No, I don't think it's yeah. Yeah.
But I do like that they end up writing in the story that they don't think that this Kirk is a parallel Kirk or a spy Kirk. What they end up thinking is oh, he must know something from the Empire, from higher up, or he has some sort of secret agenda. Where it's no, we're not going to do this. And they're oh, he's up to something. He's going to kill us all, type of thing,
Yeah, right. Seems like Spock kind of catches on.
Oh yeah,
pretty quickly.
I think Spock is immediately suspicious when they come out of the transporter chamber. He's like,
Yeah.
he says some things to him, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, no, totally fine." And he's like, "That doesn't make any sense." There's a part later I thought of you when it'll be a while from now, but I thought of you, and if I ever it'll make you laugh, and you'll look forward to laughing.
Good. We'll look forward to it.
At that point, Uhura tells Kirk that she has the Hulk and Council on channel. Kirk tells the leader it is useless to resist them, but the Hulkans insist they are not resisting. Kirk gives them 12 hours to reconsider. However, Tharn tells that be it 12 years or 12,000, they are ethically compelled to deny the Empire's demand for the dilithium crystals, for the Empire would use their power to destroy. Kirk tells them destruction is the Enterprise leveling their planet and taking what they want, and that the Hulkans will die as a race. Tharn says they will willingly do so to preserve their culture. Kirk closes the channel and tells Sulu to turn off phasers. Spock says a 12-hour reprieve is unprecedented. Kirk leaves for his quarters, telling Uhura to have McCoy and Scotty meet him there. On his navigation panel, Chekhov presses 2 buttons and leaves with Kirk. Spock tells Kirk before he enters the turbolift that he must report Kirk's conduct to Starfleet Command. Kirk tells Spock he is at liberty to do so. In the turbolift, Chekhov asks Kirk if he wants to go to Deck 5. Kirk nods that he does. Just as the doors open and Kirk prepares to walk out, he is hit forcefully in the mouth by a crewman and held against the wall by 2 others. Chekhov pulls out a phaser and tells Kirk that with his death, the entire crew will advance in rank and that no one would dare question the assassination of a captain who disobeys the prime orders of the Empire. Yeah, he gets smacked like right in the mouth.
Yeah, he gets hit pretty good.
I liked when the Hulking guy came back, he was like, he looked really tired and like worn out.
Yeah.
Like almost like their society was not flourishing as much as it was in the other world, like like the Empire was destroying other planets and other things and so therefore they weren't benefiting from,
Yeah,
like
that's true.
like I don't know, just perhaps like galactic neighbors or just other planets like visiting them and doing nice things with them, like trading and stuff of that nature. They just looked so much more like worn out, the guy who came on the monitor.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think this is the first time you have gotten all 6 original casts together, but they're not they're all mirror universe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, Captain's Log Supplemental. I command an enterprise where officers apparently employ private henchmen among the crew, where assassination of superiors is a common means of advancing in rank. Just as Chekhov is about to shoot Kirk, Wilson knocks the phaser out of Chekhov's hand and throws him into the corner, knocking him down. He then gets one of the crewmen off Kirk and shoots him dead, vaporizing him with his own phaser. Kirk wiggles away from the other guard and knocks him across the deck, and Wilson shoots him dead with his phaser, also vaporizing him. Just at that moment, Kirk's henchman appears out of the turbolift. Wilson tells one of them that he helped Kirk, which Kirk confirms. He then turns his attention to Wilson, who tells Kirk that Chekhov was going to make him a chief and asks if Kirk might make him an officer. Kirk says that Wilson is, from then on, working for him. Wilson asks if he's commissioned, and Kirk smiles at him and tells him that he's now in line. He might even make captain. Wilson smiles after an enthusiastic, "Yes, sir." Kirk knocks Wilson out and says he won't be captain on Kirk's ship. Farrell asks Kirk if Chekhov should go to the booth. Kirk assents. Arriving at Kirk's quarter, he tells McCoy and Scott to watch their backs as the officers move up by assassination. Scott tells Kirk that Sulu is security chief and compares him to the ancient Gestapo. McCoy compares sickbay to a chamber of horrors where two of his assistants were betting on how long it would take an injured man to pass out from the pain. Scott tells Kirk the technology is virtually identical with only variations in instrumentation. When Kirk asks about star readings, Scott tells him everything is exactly as it should be, except for them. Yeah, it was nice that, like, okay, clearly henchmen are a thing. Like, Chekhov has his guys that, like you were saying, that, like, work with him. So it was nice that, like, when you came back from the commercial break, that immediately, like, obviously the captain would have henchmen, like, watching out for him, too.
Yeah, that's the thing about like this universe is like like you can't just be a bad guy like all the time.
Right.
Because like if you're just a jerk all the time, then like nobody's gonna like take your side and like be your bodyguard or stick up for you, you know?
Right.
They're gonna be very willing to like mutiny and like get rid of you on board.
Yeah. It's like a thing that works on paper because it's really fascinating and like it's fun to make good characters evil.
Yeah.
But when you really think about it and start to like explore like how this
Oh
world
yeah.
would function, you're like, how would anything get done?
Well, that's the same thing about like the Klingons.
Oh, true, yeah.
You know, they're all like super violent all the time, but it's
Right.
like that's their society would just be like in shambles, you know?
Well, that's why it was nice in the episode that you saw with Enterprise that, like, you know, okay, yes, like Klingons are warrior and all this stuff, but it's like, yeah, but there have to be shipbuilders and scientists
And
and
lawyers.
like lawyers, right? And it's like there has to be like
Yeah.
it can't not be that because otherwise, like it doesn't make any sense. Like there has to be Klingons who aren't just immediately like, oh no, this is what I do, I kill everybody. It's like, no, there has to be this balance.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It makes no sense for
Right.
a race to like prosper.
Exactly, yeah. They don't really get into is but I was thinking, man, that's like it shows how good Scotty and McCoy are because when they come to the captain's quarters and tell them what's going on, like there haven't been incidents on the ship of
Hmm.
Scotty going and looking for things, and it's like he's trying to sneak around and there's guards everywhere, and then McCoy's in the sick bay and he's literally listening to these two guys talk about how long until this guy passes out. It's
Yeah.
like I like the fact that Scotty and McCoy are able to stay like undercover and like not continuously freak out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. Because it even shows Scotty when he's like going to like engineering and they're like, no, you don't need to be here.
Yeah, he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he just moves on. But it's just it is funny too because like they're hearing all this horrible stuff on board.
Yeah.
And they're just like not talking about it. And then when they finally go and they talk to Kirk in the room again,
Uh-huh.
Kirk's like, yeah, I was almost assassinated. That's how you rank up on the ship. And I'm like, you know what? That makes sense because the two guys in medbay were taking bets on whether or not this person was going to die so they could like take his stuff. Yeah. It was like they're hearing all this horrible stuff and they're like, that makes a lot more sense now. Now that the
Now that I have more
almost
context, right? Yeah.
I think that's why, like you're saying, I think that's why they're so good at blending in is because they're oblivious.
Kirk then decides to try the library computer. At first, Kirk is surprised to hear the computer speak with a male voice rather than female. He then begins a program of classified security research accessible to only him and Scotty. Using all the data from the ion storm, Kirk has the computer work on the idea to see if a sufficiently strong enough ion storm could cause a power surge in transporter circuits, which create a momentary interdimensional contact with a parallel universe. The computer answers, affirmative. Kirk then asks if people in the act of beaming through such a storm could they transpose accidentally with their counterparts in the other universe, to which the computer answers, affirmative. Kirk then asks if such conditions could be artificially created using the ship's power, to which the computer again answers, affirmative. Kirk records the research onto a record tape and gives it to Scott. Scott tells Kirk that he'll need help, but Kirk would be too conspicuous. At that point, he drafts McCoy to help him. I'm a doctor, not an engineer, McCoy states. Now you're an engineer, Scott replies. As Scott steps off to another terminal in Kirk's quarters to do some research on his own, McCoy asks Kirk what kind of people they are in this universe. So Kirk asks the computer for a readout of the current commander. The computer tells him that Captain James T. Kirk succeeded to command the ISS Enterprise through assassination of Captain Christopher Pike. Kirk's first two actions were suppressing a rebellion by destroying the rebels' home planet and executing 5,000 colonists on Vega 9.
Way to go.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think that, like, Mirror Universe Pike, like, you know, either Jeffrey Hunter or Anson Mount, like, he was the captain, and then this Kirk, like, killed him to get control
No,
of the Enterprise.
I think Kirk killed the guy in the wheelchair.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because that would be truly evil.
Evil. Well, he wouldn't be in the wheelchair because he wouldn't save children.
That's so true. Wow. That's
yeah, he
true.
wouldn't be a hero down in the engine room
Mm-mm.
saving people. He would be like, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was more like Admiral Pike from Strange New Worlds, like looking older, you know, with like white in his hair. That would be the Pike he would have to take on.
Cool. That's a cool thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing where I understand going forward why fans and like writers of Star Trek like go on to like expand this world, because you know it's in a I'm not usually like into villain stuff, but it is fun to take like heroic and good characters and then be like, well, what if we make them terrible and awful?
Yeah, right.
Kirk quickly cuts off the record, having heard more than enough. Scott tells Kirk that their plan can work by using the automatic transporter setting. Unfortunately, however, the interruption of the engine circuits will appear on Sulu's security board. Kirk says he'll get Uhura to create a diversion to distract Sulu's attention as soon as he's ready. Kirk tells everyone to get back to their posts and keep him appraised. After Scott leaves, McCoy and Kirk ponder what their counterparts are doing in their universe on their Enterprise. At that moment on the Prime Universe Enterprise, the counterpart Kirk is being forcefully dragged to the brig by two security officers. Kirk demands that the security release him, but they ignore him. Spock Prime is waiting for them at the brig. Kirk tries to get Spock to let him go. The security officers throw Kirk into the brig with the other counterparts, who angrily ask what's going on, and they also clearly yell at Spock. Kirk threatens to have Spock and the security guards executed. Spock tells him that's not likely, as his authority is extremely limited in that regard. Spock tells Kirk that the four of them will remain in the brig and in custody until he can figure out how to get them back to wherever it is they belong. Kirk says the whole galaxy's gone crazy, wonders about his uniform, about Spock's beard, and what has happened to his personal guards. Spock says he cannot answer those questions at this time. Kirk then tries to bribe Spock with either credits or perhaps his own command. Spock theorizes that some kind of interesting transference has taken place. Kirk asks Spock what might buy him, perhaps power. Spock can only reply with fascinating. Kirk yells at Spock as he's walking away, telling Spock that he can get power for him. Spock!
Was it money? Do you want money? Is it power? You want power, Spock? I can get you anything, Spock. Where's your goatee, Spock? Where is it?
Yeah. It had
Where
to
are
be,
your sashes and your blades?
it had to be really fun to be those, like, to be on
Yeah.
set, like acting like insane and angry and evil and stuff, right? Like, ah.
Yeah. Nobody else really did anything. They just got to sit in the back of the like prison cell.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really funny though, and I know it was like intentionally that way, but it was really funny. They're like, oh, I wonder what's happening in our side of the things with
Yeah.
with our counterparts, and then just hard cut, and it's just like, get your hands off me, get your hands off me.
I'm under what?
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, what was the thing? What was the thing called on his belt that he used to like shock him? The
Agonizer.
agonizer. Yeah, yeah. That's like that would be their first thing is like agonize him. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Agonize him. Take over.
Punish him.
Like, no, we're just gonna put you in the brig till we figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I like how our Spock, he immediately was like, these people are from a different universe.
Like, no, this isn't. Nah.
There definitely like immediately isn't like something weird that happened on Beam Up, like that fried their brains or something, like no, they're just different.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely. So there was an episode that I didn't play for you because it's like, I don't know, it's just not that amazing of an episode, but it's like it's really early in season 1, and Kirk, when he beams up, I think he splits into 2 different Kirks. And like one Kirk is like his emotional, like sensitive side, and the other one is like his like barbarian side.
That's awesome.
And it's just like it's a very similar thing where you have like a deranged Kirk like roaming the ship trying to like destroy things, and you have like this really like passive, like, oh, I don't want to hurt anybody kind of Kirk, like, like sitting around and not doing anything, and Spock has to be like, he has to put it all together and help him and stuff. Yeah, I think it's called The Enemy Within.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's okay. I know there's people out there that like the episode, but it's okay. Meanwhile, back on the Mirror Enterprise, Kirk Prime is walking through a corridor where he's met by Spock, who has a guard of his own, another Vulcan. Spock tells Kirk that he's pleased Kirk foiled Chekhov's plan, stating that he does not want to be captain. He prefers his scientific duties, and that he is, quite frankly, content to be a lesser target. Kirk tells him that he is logical as always. At that moment, a switch is thrown, and we hear Chekhov screaming. Kirk turns and sees Chekhov in some kind of booth, surrounded by the guards that took him away. Spock tells Kirk the agony booth is a most effective means of discipline, and then asks Kirk if he's ordered full duration. Kirk says he hasn't decided, a decision which surprises Spock as Chekhov's act warrants death. Kirk angrily repeats that he hasn't decided. Spock submits that it's Kirk's business, and then asks if he intends to continue in this unusual course of action regarding the Halkans, as they are in conflict with standard Imperial procedure, and that Kirk cannot ignore their consequences. Kirk asks Spock if that is a threat. Spock tells Kirk that he is merely stating facts. Spock says that he has found Kirk to be an excellent officer, and that their missions together have been both successful and profitable. However, Spock will not permit Kirk's aberrations to jeopardize his position. Kirk asks Spock if he thinks they should destroy the Halkans. Spock tells him that terror must be maintained or the Empire is doomed. It is the logic of history. So here's your scene you talked about, right? He's like, He's like, well, Spock's like, this really worked out for you, Captain. I'm glad. He's like, I don't want to be captain. This is a reason why, because I'd be constantly attacked. And then they're like, flick. And
Mhm.
Chekhov's like, hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah, wasn't having a good time.
He was being agonized.
He was in agony. Anguish.
Oh, yeah. Kirk wonders if they've perhaps gone too far with their conquest, stating that part is easy, but controlling the masses are not. Spock says he does not want to have to find himself opposing Kirk, but if Kirk persists in his confusing, inexplicable behavior, he will have no choice. Kirk tells Spock that it is his concern and not Spock's. Kirk tells Spock that he would find Kirk to be a formidable enemy. Spock says he knows that and asks if Kirk is aware of the reverse. After Spock leaves, Kirk tells Farrell to release Chekhov from the booth and confine him to quarters. Meanwhile, outside engineering, Scott distracts a guard. McCoy is able to hypo him unconscious. They drag him inside the door and climb up the ladder to the emergency manual monitor and begin to do some of their work. The thing that I really, really like, and it's just purely Leonard Nimoy, he's so good at acting that when Kirk says to him, like, hey, you realize, like, if you're gonna come after me, like, you're gonna have a pretty formidable enemy out of your hands. And just the way Nimoy delivers it, he's like, oh, I'm aware. Also, are
Hmm.
you aware of the reverse? It's so cold. It's like he's
Yeah.
not even slightly afraid of like Kirk at all. I mean, I know he's a Vulcan and he's not supposed to show emotions, but it's just so it was a powerful scene.
Yeah. Yeah. He was very much like, yeah, you also have to deal with the repercussions of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Okay. Kirk goes to his quarters and finds a woman asleep on his bed. She tells him they had a difficult time in the chemistry lab cleaning up the mess after the storm, but nothing compared to what he's gone through, referring to his earlier incident with Chekhov. Kirk says that Chekhov gambled and Kirk won. Marlena says that Kirk got lucky and states she's surprised as to how easily he was caught off guard. Kirk tells her he was preoccupied. She asks if he's still in trouble with Starfleet Command. She can't figure out what kind of scheme he's got in mind. She figures that either the Hulkins have something he wants, or he's trying to scheme a way to advance to the Admiralty, or perhaps the Cabinet. Kirk says if he's successful, he may go further than that. Moreau asks if she can know his plan. Asks if she can know what his plan is, thinking it only fair if she's to be the woman of a Caesar. Oops. After a brief kiss, the intercom chimes and Kirk steps over to it. Spock is calling him, telling him that he's received a private message from Starfleet Command and that by telling Kirk about it, he is violating regulations. Spock tells Kirk that he must wait until planet dawn over principal target to permit Kirk to carry out their mission. If Kirk does not discharge his duties, then Spock is ordered to kill him and proceed against the Hulkins as the new captain of the Enterprise. Ah! So you knew there had to be a lady just waiting to smooch and kiss.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't enjoy any of this stuff with her, to be honest.
Yeah. It's like a thing where he learns valuable information in these scenes and like it definitely helps him going forward. And his like playing along and being like actually nice to her like lends to him, not dying. But
Yeah.
it is a lot, like they are very long drawn out scenes.
Yeah, they are. It's just kind of like it just Yeah, it's just like anytime that Kirk gets like distracted by that kind of stuff is like very, it's like, okay, give me a break, you know?
It's sadly like very James Bondy, where it's like he's
Yeah.
in this like mission and the world's about to blow up from nuclear disaster, and then he meets a woman and like everything goes on pause. And it's like, oh, well, let me talk to you really quick and we can go back to this hotel. And it's like, hey, do you remember that this guy has like nuclear codes and like he's advancing on this facility to launch them against like the entire planet? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I
there's a
think it's just,
lady.
yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, but have you
It's
seen
like,
her?
yeah. You know, it pays off because
Right, because of the whole, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. But we get to see that Spock is not as evil as his goatee is telling us.
that's true.
So we are at the halfway point of our podcast, well, of the review. So let's why don't you go down to the comment section and Caleb, you can tell them what to write.
The agonizer,
Agonizer.
the agony of agonizer in the agonator.
Captain's
Yeah,
log started unknown. We are trapped in a savage parallel universe from which we must escape within 4 hours, or I will face a death sentence at Mr. Spock's hands. Moreau and Kirk drink a toast to Spock as the only man aboard with the decency to warn Kirk, and he'll die for it. Kirk says he does not intend to kill him. Moreau asks if he's going to act against the Hulkins before the deadline, and Kirk says he won't, but he'll also avoid killing Spock. Moreau asks if Kirk is just going to get Spock and his men out of the way. Kirk says he'll get out of Spock's way. Moreau asks if she should activate the Tantalus field so Kirk can monitor him. Not knowing what she means, Kirk tells her to go ahead and watches as he touches a couple of areas on what appears to be a decoration on the wall, revealing an alcove containing a small video screen and some buttons. Moreau tells Kirk she hates the device, playing for time while she unwittingly shows him what the device is and how it works. Kirk says, it's not so bad. Moreau replies that of course he'd think that, as it is what made him captain of the Enterprise. She wonders how many people Kirk has simply wiped out of existence by the touch of a button, thoughtfully pointing to the button as she speaks, and then contemplates the humor in how the great powerful Captain Kirk, who owes everything to some unknown alien scientist and a plundered laboratory. Kirk and Moreau mutually agree, then, that if one does not take advantage of one's opportunities, one does not rise to command a starship or even higher. The interesting thing is, and I was kind of bummed that our tour guide didn't do it. So they have that at the tour. So when we were in Kirk's quarters, you can literally they and it's amazing. They can go over that decoration on the wall and literally press the two spots and the thing comes up. And
what?
the little screen there with all the buttons and everything is there, and it's playing in the screen. It's playing the episode of Mirror Mirror.
Well, that's pretty lame.
I know, right? I know they don't. I don't know if it's like because he's new, he has to get like approval to like operate things. But because like I said to you too, like the screen, the like scanner viewing screen that was on Sulu's end of the console like can retract into the console and come out, like,
Yeah.
so I don't know, but they are, they don't want stuff to break, so I get it.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool that that's there. I
right, I know.
would have had no idea.
Who do you think is the unknown alien scientist? Who's your guess? Who do you think it is? I don't know who it is, but just saying.
The unknown alien scientist?
Yeah, the guy who gave him the Tantalus field.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I kind of even missed that was like a thing.
Yeah, it says that that's how he got it. The Tantalus field is was he either found it or as he says he plundered a laboratory. She says to him, the great powerful Captain Kirk who owes everything to some unknown alien scientist in a plundered laboratory. So that Tantalus field is not something he made. He just like found it.
Right. Oh,
I was just trying to
boy.
think of like anybody that from either Enterprise or Strange New Worlds or even earlier season 1, like original series, like we could point to and be like, oh, if they conquered that guy, they probably got this technology.
Probably the Romulans.
Ooh, Romulans.
I mean, they're probably the only people that have that kind of technology that I know of at this point.
Yeah. At first, I thought maybe it was like Corby with the androids, but then it was like alien. It wasn't a human. So I don't know. Yeah. But that's a good point. Romulans, yeah, definitely might have like superior, crazy technology because they're trying to like truly fight against the Federation now, the Empire, because the Empire is like expanding and destroying things, right? Like they're not peaceful explorers, they're conquerors. So
Yeah, true.
it's a good thought.
Yeah, they don't care.
Observing Spock, Moreau offers to go ahead and kill him, but Kirk stops her and deactivates the device. Moreau says that if Spock fails to kill Kirk, then he'll still be executed. Kirk says that he'll make certain the circumstance of Spock's failure will clear him. Moreau is amazed that Kirk isn't even afraid of Starfleet Command. She wonders just how much power is Kirk expecting to accumulate, and then wonders how she'll fit into the circumstances. Kirk asks Moreau how she wants to fit in, to which she smiles and then walks through a door, ostensibly to her end of the cabin, leaving Kirk alone. Alone, Kirk calls Scott on his communicator and tells him they have to get out of there inside of 3 hours, as Spock has ordered to kill him unless he completes their military mission. Scott tells him that the two-way transmitter affected local field densities within the two universes, and they've got to escape within a half an hour, or they'll be stuck in the mirror universe for the rest of their lives. Scott needs Kirk to get to the transporter room in about 10 minutes and free up the board so Scott can lock in. Kirk says after he leaves the transporter room, he'll meet Scott and McCoy in sickbay afterwards. It's definitely a thing that Scott gives this rationale for like how the two worlds are working and how the transporter stuff is working. And I don't know, I don't remember the exact reasoning, but like when the mirror universe stuff like returns, it's very much like it doesn't go as smoothly. Like this makes it seem very difficult to return to the mirror universe. It's like we have a very limited way of returning. If we miss the window, it's not like, well, a couple of years will go by. He literally says a century.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. So that makes you think like in the future, like it would, the windows of people returning or the crossing over would be like pretty hard and almost near impossible, or at least incursions wouldn't happen as frequently.
Yeah, and I wonder why.
I know they go and explain it. I know there's a couple lines in Deep Space Nine where they kind of like explain stuff, but still.
Yeah, because to me it just seemed like it was because of like the ion storm.
Right. It does kind of just seem like that. Like
And
it's
I'm
just like a perfect happening, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things though, like I wonder if it would ever be able to happen again, considering it seems like the other Enterprise needs to be in the same like area.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like in both universes they both need to be in the same spot, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, the likelihood of that is pretty low.
Pretty low. In his quarters, Spock has been curious about the computer activity and inquires the computer about it. The computer tells him that the captain and Scott are conducting a classified security research under Kirk's voice index log. Spock turns to contemplate that when he notices a beep on his computer, and after he activates it, asks Sulu why he is monitoring Spock's communications. Sulu tells Spock that his security board had detected extensive use of computers and he was going to inform Spock. Sulu says that he can figure out what Starfleet told Spock and tells him that he suspects that Kirk is working on escape or defense. When Spock tells Sulu it's his business, Sulu tells Spock he hopes Spock succeeds because the order would fall on Sulu next, and Sulu is concerned about how Kirk's enemies have the unfortunate habit of disappearing. Spock tells Sulu that if he succeeds, Sulu will find himself a step closer to the captaincy. Spock says he does not want to command the Enterprise, but if it should happen, Spock reminds Sulu that his operatives would avenge his death, and some of them are Vulcans. That statement seems to frighten Sulu a bit, and he closes the channel. Back in Kirk's quarters, Moreau appears wearing a colorful, much more seductive outfit. She admits to being a bit out of practice and laments that it's difficult for her to appear perfectly as a woman constantly. Kirk says that he's never seen any woman come closer to perfection. She says she remembers how he used to talk that way. Kirk says he still does. When she asks for proof, Kirk says he has to go. Moreau is angry about being put off for one task or another. She then realizes that their relationship must be over. Moreau tells Kirk that Commander Kenner will take her for a time. When she prepares to call a yeoman for assistance to move out, Kirk tells her that's unnecessary. Moreau wonders if Kirk is feeling sorry for her. Then she demands a transfer, saying on the Enterprise she's humiliated, but on another ship she can hunt for another man. She then says she's got her rank, that she's been a captain's woman, and she likes it. And if it requires she go through every officer in the fleet, she'll be one again. Kirk says she could, and when Moreau turns to strike him, Kirk stops her and tells her he simply meant that Moreau could be anything she wanted to be. He then kisses her very passionately. Moreau says it's been a long time since he kissed her like that, and based on Kirk's mercy towards Spock and towards her, calls him a stranger. She then asks if she's his woman. Kirk tells her she's the captain's woman until he says she's not. He then leaves their quarters. Moreau turns on the Tantalus field and watches Kirk go into the turbolift.
Yep.
So really,
And
the
then the other-
takeaway of this big meaty stretch of me reading was basically another great acting scene of Leonard Nimoy saying to Sulu, like, again, if you're going to hurt me or do something, like, there are more Vulcans on the ship.
Yeah. So that kind of implies too, right? That like the Vulcans also are not in their like peaceful era. They're in their
Right.
like really
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, it's a thing that, like I said, they go on to like give this idea that like humanity, the Terrans, humans have like control, like Vulcans are slaves. And like when you watch this episode, like that's not what the impression you get at all.
Mm-mm.
And I get it. I get like, they want to add more life to this world, but it also like doesn't overly make too much sense. The certain choices that they make in the future. And then all the stuff with her is like fine, but it's just like it's very drawn out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they make you. That's the thing that's annoying about it is they make you care about this character and like you're invested in this character and want to know more about her. But this is it. Like she doesn't come back. It's not like you're gonna see her again. Even at the end when he's like, "Ooh," like that nothing happens.
Yeah, it's like he does all this stuff and he makes her like feel good, but then the other Kirk is just gonna come on board and immediately be a jerk to her.
Right.
So it's like great.
Right, exactly.
Nice, The other thing too is like he's trying to like persuade everybody on board to like not go along with the way things are, and it's like it's a lot more complicated than just having Spock want to be captain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's this whole thing.
Yep. like, hey, your whole world is surrounded and dominated by
Yeah.
evil people, but you don't have to be evil.
Yeah, it's like no, you're setting these people up to like die. It's not like they're gonna start a revolt and change the. Plus, it's like it's not even your universe, so who cares what they do?
Right. Right.
Like obviously, our Kirk would never go along and blow up that planet, but also it's one of those things where it's like he might as well have because who cares?
Right. Because also that Kirk is probably going to come back and
Yeah, and immediately blow it up. Yeah,
right.
immediately.
There is stuff that they talk about later in Deep Space Nine about what happens here in this crossover thing, but I just don't remember. But it doesn't really matter because it's like at this point, this is what you're led to believe, right? Like,
Yeah,
as a first time watcher of this, like, what does it matter? It's just
yeah.
like Kirk is going to come back up and be like, "Oh, I can't believe I was in another world and you didn't have a goatee and everything's terrible." And then he's going to be like, "Catch me up to speed." And he's going to tell him, he's going to be like, "Okay, Chekhov is dead. Sulu is dead. Marlena is dead." And then he's going to be like, "And fire phasers on the planet and blow up the Halkans." And like, let's move on.
Yeah, yeah, immediately.
In the turbo lift, Kirk calls Uhura and tells her that Scott should be calling her soon. He asks if she's prepared. She says she is, and that she will do her best to keep Sulu distracted. Kirk wishes her good luck and then closes the channel. At this point, Scott and McCoy have climbed up into a Jeffries tube, and just before Scott begins to make the alterations, he signals Uhura. Uhura walks down to Sulu and chides him for not being very persistent, reminding him that he's ignoring the rules of the game. She's supposed to protest, and then he's supposed to come back. Sulu puts his arms around her and tells her she's making sense now. Uhura says she was getting bored, but of course, this isn't the time. Sulu, meanwhile, is kissing Uhura's neck and tells her any time's a good time. While he is kissing her, the beep on his console from Scott's work is detected, but goes unnoticed. When the beep stops, she smiles, backs away, and then backhands Sulu back into his seat, telling him she's changed her mind again. An angry Sulu tells her she takes a lot of chances, but Uhura draws her knife and tells Sulu he does too. She keeps Sulu at bay with her knife and has one of the relief officers take over for her, and she leaves the bridge. While in the turbolift, she contacts Scott and tells him that it's all clear and she's headed for sickbay. I'm not going to take all the credit, but the thing that's really impressive about this is I saw this video on either YouTube or Instagram about another podcast like talking about it. So when the scene happened, I watched to see what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And they are 100% correct. So the whole stuff happens between her and Sulu, and then once the Scotty's work is like not detected, she takes her knife out, and she does this cool thing where Nichelle Nichols doesn't look behind her, and she goes up the steps and then like turns, and she just keeps walk. She walks like almost fully backwards to the turbo lift doors.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like turn her head like at all. And she does it pretty fluidly. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, that is true. She's like, she impressively like moves on the bridge pretty effortlessly.
Yeah, I picked up on that too. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, just pretty neat.
The thing that was interesting to me about this part was that she has like those guys on the bridge were like protecting her.
Oh yeah.
And I just thought that was interesting because like all the bridge crew is kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
But they were like specifically like protecting her from and it was just kind of like it's kind of weird.
Well, it was her henchman basically, yeah.
Yeah. But they seemed like they were just like the door guards.
True.
You know what else is funny about that too is that like that is like from the pilot is like they used to have two guards by the door.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And now, like, that's a thing in this universe. Like, there's always two guards by the doors.
Yep.
I thought that was funny.
Well, we can understand why, because like almost every other episode of Star Trek, somebody's bursting out of the turbo lift to take over the ship. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, even McCoy that time.
yeah, McCoy, Spock, like just a whole mess left.
That's pretty funny.
In the transporter room, Kirk is working on unlocking the controls of the transporter console when Spock, armed with a phaser, steps in and detains him. After confiscating Kirk's weapon, Spock asks Kirk what he's doing, but Kirk will give no information and tells Spock to go ahead and shoot him. Spock says that Kirk is too inflexible and disciplined once he's made up his mind. Conversely, Dr. McCoy is sentimental and soft, so he'll be able to get the information he needs from him. Kirk threatens Spock, but Spock reminds Kirk that he's the one with the phaser, and he does not intend to simply disappear as so many of Kirk's opponents have previously. Spock then leads Kirk to sickbay, where he finds the rest of the landing party waiting on Kirk. Kirk turns and attacks Spock, and the others join in. Spock is able to handle all four rather easily, although Kirk does put up more of a fight than the others. Finally, Uhura hands Kirk a ceramic, which he smashes over Spock's head, rendering him unconscious. Scott tells Kirk they have maybe 15 minutes to go, and McCoy demands they help get Spock on the examination table, as Spock will die without immediate treatment. After complying, Kirk asks Scott if everything's ready for them to go. Scott says it is and tries to get McCoy to hurry, as they are risking not going home. McCoy says they have time and tells Scott to shut up. McCoy asks Kirk if he should stop, but that his work will only take a minute. Kirk mentions that this Spock is very much like their own Spock, and that McCoy can continue. Just then, Sulu walks in with 3 security guards. When Kirk asks what he is doing, Sulu says that Spock is going to succeed in his order to kill Kirk, apparently. Kirk will also appear to have killed Spock after a fierce battle. Sulu calls it regrettable, but it will leave him as captain. Okay, so here's the funny scene that I mentioned earlier. It made me think of you, and I laughed, and I thought, it just makes me think of when you do like your side character voice thing, is when Spock takes Kirk from the transporter room to the sick bay, and he comes in and he goes, "Yes, of course, the other members of the landing party."
Yeah.
And I thought about you, and it was just like,
Oh,
like he wasn't surprised at all.
no. No, he knew what was going on.
It was very much like the yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we know from the tour too that the ceramic skull thing that Uhura hands Kirk is the like great bird of the galaxy skull that represented Gene Roddenberry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Smashes it right over his head.
That is the only thing that I thought was a little dumb.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, doesn't Uhura have like a knife in her boot? So it's like, why not hand him the knife and then stab like Spock in the back or something, right?
Well, they all have
Right.
knives
They all have knives.
because they all have the knife on their belt thing.
Yeah. It just felt like the way it's one of those things, and I know it's like 60s television and it doesn't really matter, but it's one of those things that here is Spock like easily dealing with 4 people, and yes, Kirk sometimes gets the upper hand on him, but not really. And he's super powerful. He's overpowering them. Spock is not having a hard time like contending with them. And then they take this like, the stupid thing that I always think, it's like this super fragile thing, and they smash it over his head, and it's like, well, he's out. And it's like, and that's not really how any of that stuff works. It's like, if the thing didn't break, then it would do severe damage to him, right? Because it's like it's like his skull and his brain have no choice but to wiggle around in his skull. But when something shatters, it's like, well, doesn't have as much force. it breaks apart. And I
Yeah.
know it's just for looks to be like it's a crazy impact and it's like the exploding of ceramics everywhere. It makes it look like, oh my God, he's essentially murdered him, because of McCoy's immediate reaction is, well, we got to get him on the table. He's gonna die. And when he said that, I had forgot that this happened.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah, that whole thing to me was like very stupid. Especially for it to be McCoy.
Yeah,
I
right.
get that he's a
Exactly.
doctor and, do no harm and all that stuff, but it's like McCoy never has any like strong connection to Spock anyway.
No.
And this isn't even your Spock. So it's like, what
Right.
do you care?
Like, who cares? Right. Yeah.
Do you care? And if there's one person on the ship that can stop them from getting home, it's gonna be Spock. So
Right. And
why
also,
would you help him? And then he's so surprised when he like wakes up. It's like, what was your goal? I don't understand.
yeah. And the other thing is too, is it's like they're really playing fast and loose with like 10 minutes. It's not like, hey, Captain, if we miss this window, we have to wait like a week. It's like, no, we will never leave. It's a century will go by. We will not be able to try again. We will die before that time comes.
I think McCoy wanted to stay.
Maybe.
I think he liked it there. He liked the violence. Since he likes all those medieval surgical tools and stuff.
Maybe.
That's the other thing, like you're saying, like, doesn't McCoy always carry around like high-powered drugs and stuff like all the time? And now the one time he needs it, like, he doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
He carried that thing to make Kirk look like he was dead, but now no, he doesn't carry anything anymore.
No, right. That was my whole point in the muck time. Like, why did he have that?
Because he needed to, Will, because he needed
I
to.
know. Because of whatever it's called. I forget what it's called.
Plot armor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. But, whatever.
Whatever.
But yeah, so I thought this whole scene was weird.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the four of them fighting Spock.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Yeah.
But then when they finally get the upper hand, then it was like, why did McCoy choose to like stay there and help
Right.
him not die? Like I didn't get it.
It was basically because Spock is so cool, you can't let Spock be evil and bad, and you can't kill evil Spock. It's like, it's literally just the writers being like, Spock is the most popular character, so you have to make sure he comes out on top.
But the way that it goes, again, it's just like they could have just explained to Spock from the beginning, like what was going on.
Yeah, like, hey, so here's the thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because obviously Spock's gonna want his actual captain back. He doesn't want these idiots,
Yeah.
So he does the well, you're getting to it, but yeah.
So
It was just interesting.
It was. So before we get into the last part, let's do some trivia. So Jerome Bixby, the writer, based this episode very loosely on one of his own short stories, One Way Street. In the original draft script, Kirk traveled to the parallel universe alone, and the parallel universe Federation was battling with a race called the Tharn. This name was later given to the leader of the Halkan Council, although it is not spoken on screen. Let's see there. During the filming of this episode, Barbara Luna had strep throat and 103-degree fever. So Barbara Luna is the Marlena woman.
Wow.
So her kissing scenes with Shatner were postponed for 2 weeks. The scenes were shot on Friday, August 11th, 1967, during the production of another episode called The Deadly Years. Since Luna had lost a couple of pounds due to her illness, costume designer William Ware Thies had to come up with a new costume for her, which hid the weight loss. As a clever improvisation, Thies put her in a bikini and covered it with a piece of colorful drape. So basically, when she comes back into the room, with the thing on. It's like they're different scenes.
Gotcha.
It's like 2 weeks later, basically.
Hmm.
This episode marks the first time in Star Trek history that Scott addresses Kirk as Jim.
Hmm.
This is also the only episode in which Uhura is seen in a moving turbolift.
What?
Yep. This is the first episode since the Menagerie Part 2 to which any mention of Christopher Pike. When Kirk and McCoy listen to the computer, they talk about him assassinating him. So this episode also marks the final time Pike's name will be mentioned in the original series.
Wow, that's a bummer.
Yep.
Beep, beep. Yes.
I knew you were going to say yes.
You have to. You literally have to. It's a law.
So in Act 4, Kirk asks Mirror Spock how long it will be before the Hulkan prediction of galactic revolt is realized. Within the context of the aired episode, this is an unlikely question for Kirk to pose because there is no prior mention or discussion of such a prediction. However, James Blish, the author who adapted most of the TOS scripts into stories in the late 1960s and early 1970s, and who often worked from early drafts of final shooting scripts, provides a clue to this missing discussion in this Mirror Mirror adaptation in Star Trek 3. After Tharn tells Kirk to preserve what we are, he continues, yes, perhaps someday your slave planets will all defy you, as we have done. When that comes, how will your starships be able to control a whole galaxy? Which is true. It's like it doesn't make any sense, but that's okay. Because he's like, oh, what's going to happen when they revolt? And it's like, but they're passive people, but it's okay. Uhura and Marlena Moreau both showed their navels in various scenes.
Oh.
This was considered controversial at the time. The crew reportedly distracted the observer from standards and practices with a long lunch while those scenes were being filmed, therefore being able to slip the navels past the censors. To further denote the inverted nature of the parallel universe, phasers are worn upside down on the left hip.
I never saw phasers.
Or a couple of them, yeah. As Kirk and company prepare to defend themselves against Sulu, one of Sulu's henchmen suddenly disappears. Back in Kirk's quarters, Marlena has been monitoring Kirk on the secret video screen ever since he left their quarters, and she has learned who he really is. She vaporizes the other guards, leaving Sulu alone to fight Kirk, and Kirk disarms and knocks Sulu out fairly easily. Scott tells Kirk they only have 10 minutes. Kirk tells McCoy that his time is up. McCoy can't let Spock die and asks for only 5 minutes. He guarantees he'll be there. After Kirk and the others leave, McCoy gives Spock a hypo, which wakes him up. Spock then grabs McCoy's arm and asks why Kirk has let him live. McCoy won't answer him, so Spock backs McCoy up against the wall and then mind melds with him. The thing that I liked a lot, so she makes the henchman disappear, and it was like, okay, that's cool. I like that part.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sulu goes to do his thing, and Kirk just like grabs his arm and pulls him, and he just like karate chops the back of his neck. And
Immediately, yeah.
All set.
It was like, yeah, you're like 4 foot nothing, dude.
In the transporter room, Marlena is waiting on the landing party. Kirk sends Scott to activate the transporter and expresses gratitude to Marlena for saving them. Marlena asks Kirk to take her with him. Kirk says he can't. Their power is balanced for only 4, and if they try it with 5, they could all die. Marlena points out there are only 3 of them. Kirk says one is coming and that he wishes he could help her. Marlena points a phaser at Kirk then, and Kirk tells her if she kills them, she'll still stay. Uhura approaches her from behind and quickly disarms Marlena. Kirk asks for the time, and Scott tells them they have 5 minutes, when suddenly the power cuts. Kirk asks if auxiliary power will work, and Scott says getting the power is no problem, but the automatic setting is linked to the transporter main, and if they bypass, someone will have to stay behind to operate the controls manually. So the thing to take away from this that I liked was the fact that like Uhura basically, right? Like she does something. She disarms Marlena. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Scott volunteers to stay, but Kirk tells him and Uhura to get to the transporter chamber. Scott begins to protest, even calling Kirk Jim. But Kirk makes it in order and Scott reluctantly complies. Kirk goes around to the transporter controls and then Spock enters with McCoy. Spock has also learned the landing party's true identities through his Vulcan mind meld, and it was he who had the transporter power cut so they couldn't beam out before he arrived. Spock gives McCoy to Scott and then orders engineering to reactivate the main transporter circuits. Kirk calls Spock a man of integrity in both universes. Spock says that they must get back to their universe and Spock must have his captain back and that he will operate the transporter.
Yeah.
I like that immediately. Scotty's just like, well, I'll do it. I'll just stay. I'll stay and do it.
Yeah, he's the engineer. He's always going to be the one that's going to put his life on the line.
Yeah. I just like the fact that he's always about the mission. He's always about like fixing the problem. And if it just happens to be that he's the one who has to stay back so that they can get back, and then so be it. That's the fix, right?
Yeah, right. Oh well. Yeah, I do like that about him. I like Scott. I mean, Scotty's one of my favorite characters, so he's pretty consistent, you know.
Yep. In the 2 minutes and 13 seconds that remain, Kirk asks how long before the Hawkins' prediction of galactic revolt is realized. Spock, as ruthlessly logic as his counterpart, has calculated that it will occur in approximately 240 years, and the inevitable outcome will be the overthrow of the Empire. Kirk then challenges the illogic of Spock continuing to serve an empire that he knows is certain to collapse. Kirk then asks if change is inevitable and for the good. Wouldn't logic insist that he be part of it? Spock tells Kirk one man cannot summon the future, but Kirk tells him one man can change the present. Be the captain of this enterprise, Mr. Spock. Find a logical reason for sparing the Hulkins and make it stick. Push till it gives. You can defend yourself better than any man in the fleet.
And then the other captain, Kirk, gets back on board and just immediately kills Spock.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, might as well. That's the thing. It's like this comment about galactic revolt is like, where is this coming from? There's no discussion of it. And yeah, we talked about it in the trivia part, but it's like this makes no sense.
Yeah, and they're talking about like it's like it could happen in weeks. It's like, no, it'll be like 300 years.
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah, you might as well start it now then. And then again, it's like, Kirk, what do you care? Like, your counterpart will be dead long before that ever happens.
Right.
Anyway.
And also when he comes back, it's not like you changed that Kirk's feelings. That Kirk is going to come back and immediately be like, okay, and then kill everybody who stood in his way.
Yeah, so it's like so basically like you want Spock to like kill your counterpart when he steps foot on board, like just immediately kills him off.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to have to happen, right? You realize that's what would have to.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Spock tells Kirk that a man must also have the power to affect change. With a glance towards Moreau, Kirk reveals the existence of the Tantalus field, with which Spock will be invincible. Spock appears intrigued. Kirk asks him to make the choice, the past or the future, tyranny or freedom. Kirk then steps onto the transporter chamber and then tells Spock, in every revolution, there's one man with a vision. Spock says only, Captain Kirk, I shall consider it, and then energizes the transporter. Reappearing in their own universe, the landing party steps off the transporter pad and are happy to see a clean-shaven Spock, who welcomes them home. It's like, I get it. They're trying to end on like a high note, but it's just like, just feels so empty, like you're saying. Like it just doesn't.
It just feels so forced to like
Yeah.
change this whole other universe's society. It's just like, why do you care if a
Yeah.
mirror universe is like not the way you want it to be? That's kind of the point, right? Is like it's
Right.
different. It's not your universe.
Right. Right.
You
And
can't just
also,
change it.
right. Right. And it's also like it's been hundreds and thousands of years of humanity being like this, like clearly. And it's like by you saving a planet for a few hours isn't going to do anything.
No. No, it's fruitless and
Don't
it's stupid.
all you DS9 boys don't come for me in the comments. I know stuff they talk about stuff in DS9, but we're just talking about the episode.
Yeah, we haven't seen it.
Yeah, so don't talk about it.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about it.
Exactly. This is like us watching it in 1967 for the first time.
Yeah. Maybe they'll talk about this stuff in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
On the bridge, as the Enterprise leaves orbit of the Vulcan homeworld, Kirk asks how Spock detected their counterparts so quickly. Spock tells Kirk that as civilized men, they were able to impersonate barbarians much easier than it was for barbarians to imitate civilized men. Spock speculates that the counterparts returned to their Enterprise at the same time the landing party arrived home. Kirk speculates that his counterpart might be in for a few changes, though. McCoy says he thinks he liked Spock with a beard better as it gave him character. Kirk mentions how easily the counterpart Spock fit into the other universe and speculated that Spock might be a bit of a pirate at heart. Spock comments on how he observed their counterparts also, calling them brutal, savage, unprincipled, uncivilized, treacherous, in every way splendid examples of Homo sapiens, the very flower of humanity. Spock also adds that he found them quite refreshing. Says he's not sure, but he thinks they've been insulted. McCoy, however, is sure.
Yeah.
That part
Yeah,
is-
so
Yeah.
you know how every episode ends with some stupid, like
Yeah,
witty, funny thing. Like,
Yeah.
it does get old, but like this one I did like this one.
Yeah,
So
well,
this
it
one
made
was
more
pretty
sense.
good.
Like Spock wasn't involved, right? So it made sense for them to have like a back
Him
and
to
forth.
be in on the joke, yeah.
Yeah,
Because usually it's at his expense and he has no idea what even happened, you know.
right, exactly.
But I really like because in this and in this one, honestly, Spock's the one that kind of, you know, got the stinger out because usually they're making fun of him.
Hmm.
And this one, he's like, yeah, they were like brutal, horrible people, you know, like it's everything I've come to expect from ancient humanity. And I gotta tell you, it was a lot nicer than having you idiots around. like, yeah, I like that. That's
Totally,
good.
totally. Yeah. I think we've been
Pretty
insulted,
good.
but I'm not sure. McCoy's like, oh, we've definitely been insulted.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, here's the final moment of the episode. At that moment, Lieutenant Marlena Moreau walks on the bridge with a report on a pad for Kirk. McCoy, Scott, and Uhura are shocked to see her, and when she arrives at Kirk's chair, she asks Moreau her name, and she tells him she was just assigned to the Enterprise last week. After she walks away, Spock asks Kirk if he knows her, citing his reaction as one of recognition. Kirk tells Spock that he hadn't met her before. Exactly. He hopes that he and Moreau could become friends.
Yeah. I forgot about that ending, man. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple things.
Yeah,
Couple
please.
things. So Kirk is so inept at being captain he doesn't know like new transfers. And
No.
also like where do you get the new transfer? Like do you have to go to a space station? Do you have to
Right.
like does somebody like meet you out in space and they just like transfer people over? Like how does that work exactly?
Yeah.
Either way, however it works, my point is, however it works, the captain is going to know about it. Like, it's not just like,
Yeah.
oh,
It's
new
not
people
like
came
people
on
just
board. Wow,
board.
that's cool.
Yeah, people don't just board the ship and he's like, oh.
Oh. I do think that I did like that. I like that she was in both universes. I
Yes.
thought that was pretty cool.
Yes.
It just was very funny that now Kirk's like, oh, I don't know. I think maybe.
Yeah.
And then he
yeah.
like walks over and takes the clipboard from her again
Yeah.
to talk to her. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's one of those it's one of those things that like it just doesn't play to it. It basically if you line it up to what other stuff happens in the series, it's basically Kirk doesn't care or remember like women on the ship. Like Uhura is the only woman he pays attention to, and that's about it. It's like, what's her name? McGruber?
McGruber, yeah.
I don't know what her name is, whatever. And then when like the yeoman comes in, he's just like, I don't know. She's just beautiful. I don't know who she is.
Who knows? I like that her hair looks like a beehive.
Get her off the ship. I don't want to see her face again. All right, that concludes our review of Mirror Mirror. But before we end the episode, we do the thing that everyone's been waiting for since the episode started. And here it is.
Caleb.
So, Caleb, who gets the Erica Ortegas Award for being most unlikable?
Let's go Chekhov.
Ooh, okay.
He's a real tool in the other universe.
I'll take it.
He's incapable. Like all these guys that want to like overthrow the captain but can't even like they can't even fight him.
He's a wimpy little baby.
Little girly man.
Yeah, little girly man. All right, who gets the Elizabeth Cutler Award for being most forgettable?
Chapel.
Okay.
Where was she? Where was she on the other Enterprise? She's
gone.
Nowhere. Yeah.
She was one of the people betting on if the guy would pass out in the sick bay that you didn't see.
I would have liked it a lot more if they got on board and they're like, why is there a woman with you?
Oh, wow.
Like there's just no women in on board in their universe.
Or when Uhura appears, it's like it's a man, right? It's like a male Uhura, right? They're like other countries in modern day who for a long time killed female babies because they only wanted men.
Yeah. I would have liked it if Uhura was a big black man.
Yeah.
But still acted like Uhura. Captain, I'm scared. Now that would have been a good episode.
Yeah. Yeah. We would have liked that.
Yes.
So my thing was counterpart Kirk in the brig.
Oh yeah.
It was basically like, who cares about this Kirk?
Yeah, it could have been any of his counterparts.
Oh, yeah.
They all just kind of stood there.
We're taking Chapel because Chapel's a good character.
Chapel's good.
Okay, who gets the Trip Tucker Award for being the MVP?
Scotty.
Yeah.
Always Scotty.
Anytime
there's something bad and it needs to be fixed, it's always Scotty.
Yeah. He's a great character. I see you're pretty heavy on the engineers. I know that Pike is your favorite from Strange New Worlds, but you're pretty heavy on the engineers.
Engineers are always, who else does the work on the ship?
Who else is?
I don't see Kirk rerouting power to get them back home. No. You know who's doing that? Scotty.
True. I can't disagree.
Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not an engineer. And Scotty gives him a wrench. He's like, well, today you're an engineer.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, Scotty don't care.
No.
All right, what gets the Shran Award for the best action sequence?
When they all fight Spock in Medbay.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
With Spock's crazed eyes when he's looking at Kirk and he's punching. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like when Uhura flies towards the camera too. That's my favorite part of that scene. Oh.
She puts up a fight though. I like that she didn't just throw her in the corner. I like that they had her.
They all do. Yeah.
Push him or punch him and it didn't do anything, but I still like
she's the one that smashes the skull on his head, isn't she?
She gives Kirk the skull.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, basically.
Blam.
What gets the NX award for some sweet ship stuff?
My favorite ship thing, since like nothing really happened, nothing's really
Yeah.
different. The only thing that's really different is the logo
Mm,
on the other Enterprise. Like in every room they go to, there's this vinyl or whatever it is. It's a logo,
yeah.
and it's a planet,
Yeah.
and it's a sword,
Yeah.
like sticking through the planet.
Yeah.
And that logo is like in all of their like rooms that they go into. And I was like, that's a really cool,
Yeah.
logo, you know.
I think they even have it on their uniforms, a couple of them, I think, too. But yeah.
I think so. And that's kind of what their dagger that they carry
Yeah.
around, that's kind of what that looks like. It's the same thing, you know.
Yep. I
And I
agree.
really liked it. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a cool design. It shows you like immediately seeing it, you're like,
Oh,
these people are all about domination. I love it.
yeah. They
So now I
use it a
gotta-
lot in like video games and stuff and comics and stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta put one in the basement now.
Oh, you got to have like a
There you
hidden one so that you can like poke and then like
When the black
reveal.
light comes on.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Okay, what gets the Porthos Award for being the cheesiest thing of the episode?
Kirk and the lady there.
Yeah, Marlena.
There has to be a scene in there. And there had to have been a scene in there that I can't remember off the top of my head that was like,
Well, I think in
over the
general,
top.
not to like sway you, but I think that in general, from how your reaction was, is like pretty much their entire interaction you didn't really like. So
yeah, I didn't love it. Love it. Even to like the scene specifically where she's like, "Oh, why don't you just use your whatever device?" And he's like, show me how that works again."
yeah,
And then she's like, "Yeah, you can kill anybody with this button. This button right here. You push this button, this person's dead." And it's like Spock. And she's like, "So you want me to push the button?" And he's like, "No, don't push the button. Don't push the button." It was very like explaining it for the audience, like numerous times, like, all you have to do is push this button and the person is gone.
Yep.
Yeah, so I thought that was fun. I think that's probably the cheesiest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean
I like
this
that though. I
button,
like
or
the
they
whole.
zoom
Yeah.
in.
I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot.
No.
No, that's the button that'll kill everybody. I am Groot. Yeah, that's kind of how that scene felt, but
Yeah.
not as funny because,
but not intentionally funny, right?
because they were adult
Yeah.
human beings.
It's like, repeat it back to me.
Yeah.
I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. No. Yeah,
Oh man.
that's a good one.
Yeah,
So,
that's pretty good.
and finally, what gets the Enterprise Award for the best scene of the episode?
I really like the scene between Spock and Kirk when they're walking down the corridor. And they're kind of having that discussion about like you said, like he's like, yeah, I'd have to be prepared to like kill you.
Yeah,
And Spock is like, yeah, well, I would also have to do that as well. And then
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
torturing, and then they're torturing.
the enemy scene.
Yeah. I like that. That's a pretty good scene between the two of them. And it kind of sets up the rest of the episode as like Spock's going to get these orders and he's going to have to fulfill these orders. Like, I shouldn't even be telling you, but you have 3 hours. 3 hours.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I like that. I really like Kirk's green uniform too, by the way.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Like
It's really growing on me.
Yeah.
I really did like their uniform, the mirror uniform, the sash.
Like the golden
I
sash.
thought was
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It gave them like a funny, like piratey mercenary feel, right? Like,
Yeah, it kind of did, doesn't it?
yeah. Hey,
Yeah, I really like.
the costume designers know what they're doing.
Yeah, they look like space pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
All
liked
right.
it.
So that's what Caleb thought. So before we conclude, just go down to the comment section and write what you thought of this episode. Do you like the Mirror episode? Do you like the Mirror Universe? What do you think about it? Do you think is it silly that just putting facial hair on Spock makes him evil, or do you like it? Let us know.
Evil.
Next week, I don't think he's going to be able to contain himself. Next week's episode is The Trouble with
Tribbles. Yes. I can't wait to watch it and we talk about it. I'm just like, God, this episode is trash.
Well, we'll see.
It's not good. I know
We'll
it's
see.
not good.
We'll see. There's some things in it that I think you'll hang on to. So
Well, it's a classic thing everybody talks about.
yeah, oh yeah.
Freaking tribbles. Everybody's got
But-
tribbles.
I don't want to give too much away, but there's some Scotty things in here that you'll like. So
Good.
So that's next week, The Trouble with Tribbles. And so as we conclude, as always, you can go over to Caleb's channel where we have a new Nerd Hole Dragon Ball rewatch. And he's made some new things. Why don't you tell him, Caleb, what you just made between our stretch here and what's to come and all that good stuff?
The Nerd Holes also put out our Indian in the Cupboard review.
Mm-hmm.
I made a micro band from Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
To kind of go along with the Indian in the Cupboard, doing many things on my channel.
Yeah.
For the month of December. even my video that has come out this week I'll already be out by the time you're watching this. It kind of covers like finishing like projects, like just taking a big project and making it into smaller bite-sized pieces. So yeah, I kind of continue the whole theme. December's been very mini.
It has. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you started with the Pokemon printing, small figures of Pokemon.
Yeah, let me see here.
And then the desk.
I made a
mini
rack for my
paint. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I made the micro band.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
I also don't know if it'll be out, but I want to do a year in review style episode. Yeah.
Looking back on all the
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Memories.
Memories.
I hope you're
memories. All alone in the moon.
I hope you put really, really sad Sarah McLachlan music. Yeah. Like you and I are like the Plastic Underground is ending and I've died and just made it go like in memoriam.
Plastic Underground in memoriam.
Yeah.
I tried to do that before. I tried to make an inspirational video about our podcast, to the theme of the Enterprise, because we both love the theme of the Enterprise, and it turned out to be we both were dead, and this is what our families were playing. Oh, that's not inspirational at all. That's depressing. I missed the mark on that one.
Yeah, well, I don't think it missed the mark. I think it's just that song just brings about things that you're not intending for the video.
Yeah, that's a good song.
All right. So if you liked the video. If you dislike it, share it with all your friends and family and Trek enthusiasts. Comment below, let us know, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and ring that bell for notifications so you can catch all the other episodes on the channel, like Star Trek History and the RPG, which is soon to have another episode.
Yeah.
We appreciate you watching. Thanks for doing this. If you're listening to us on the podcast, audio only, we thank you for that. I think we have a loyal listener over there, so we appreciate your. Because every time I put it out, it's always like one play, and I'm like, excellent. Some guy or girl out there is listening to it in the podcast.
I always forget that you have it over on the podcatchers. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty, Caleb, send us out.
Well, this has been a Trek review for you. Thanks for all your Trek likes and your Trek subscriptions. Thanks for trekking on over to the Trek review pod Trek for you. Computer and program.
Hey guys, the Retrek Review is a Daystrom Holodeck podcast produced in association with the Plastic Underground Props. Hosted by Caleb Stoddard and Will Wilbur. Edited by Will Wilbur. Our intro song is by Kaylee Joy Rookledge. Our theme song is by Samo Studios. And our outro song is by Tommy T. Title card art created by Caleb Stoddard. Trophy art created by Adri Wilbur of Love by the Letters. Synopsis and written plot provided by memory-alpha.fandom.com. Star Trek is created by Gene Roddenberry, and all official clips and pictures are owned by Paramount Pictures. You can follow us at the Plastic Underground Props and the Daystrom Holodeck on Instagram and on YouTube. Thanks for watching.